We got a comment on our channel that said stimming is like a cigarette, and we just kind of wanted to go over that.
We obviously we have our own opinions, and we could share them, but you guys hear our opinions enough, so we wanted to get a professional opinion on the subject, and so let's talk to a doctor about this.
So we made a video, 12 Signs of Stimming, a while back. In that video, I mentioned how a lot of times Ezra is really happy while he stims. And there was a commentator that says that's impossible. He can't be happy when stimming because stimming is wrong and it's bad behavior. And we, of course, came back and said, no, this stimming doesn't hurt anyone, doesn't hurt anyone else. Is it bad to let our child run back and forth? He's 3 years old and he's laughing the whole time. And she went on to say he's not happy. He can't be happy. And she said, that's not at all. The happy kid is happy to eat whatever is on their plate and can speak. So mainly she's saying the obedient kid is happy. A happy kid does not need stimming, as stimming is about trying to compensate for general unhappiness. It's like a cigarette. So what is your response when a parent says stimming is like a cigarette? I need to take it away from my child.
Okay, so let's talk about what stimming actually is in the clinical world. Okay. Again, in our diagnostic manual, you won't see stimming very often. Mm-hmm. It's in that third category of the 3 pillars of autism that's called restricted repetitive behaviors and odd and unusual sensory or other types of interest. Okay. And the definition of it is that the child engages in that behavior repetitively and in a organized or ritualistic fashion because they derive pleasure from it. Now, when people don't get it, it's because they don't have autism, right? I take no pleasure in running back and forth in a room. I'd rather hike a mountain and see a vista, right? But that's my pleasure principle because that's how I perceive my world. I want to see the beauty of the earth. I want to explore the earth. I want to see things, right? Simon, who runs back and forth, or any other child who runs back and forth, their pleasure is the motion of running. Or whatever he's deriving from it, we're not going to really understand because we don't have the same likes as he does. We don't seek the same things for our pleasure principles. And happiness is a pleasure principle. And a child like Simon running back and forth giggling the whole time is because he's tickling his fancy in some way, right? And so is it harmful? No. Unless, of course, we want him to request, pay attention, and socialize. So the child who engages in restricted repetitive behaviors to the exclusion of socialization, that's what we have to treat. That's the goal of treatment, is to reduce the amount of, or the frequency of restricted repetitive behaviors because it's interrupting the ability to engage in other activities that are more
and to
functional.
become independent.
Correct, right? So a child engaging in stimming behavior, it's not like a cigarette. To liken stimming to a process that ends in death is like saying that my sunburn was caused by the water, not the sun. It makes no sense.
Simon would run back and forth a lot, especially when we lived in an RV. We traveled the United States visiting all the national parks together as a family, and our kids would stim all the time, but we'd always make sure that they were safe. We post daily of our unique normal, so please consider subscribing.
To say that it is like a cigarette, no. It's not ever going to lead to death like a cigarette would.
So someone mentioned on our channel in response to our 12 signs of stimming that, oh yeah, sometimes I'll chew on my shirt, but then my brother will always hit me. And we kind of said, like, thanks for sharing, that's too bad that your brother hits you. You shouldn't do that. And then there was another comment in response to her comment that said, your brother tries to save you and to stop the pathological reflex. Well done him. And so she is saying, yes, this is good. He's saving you from this stim.
So again, there is no approved therapy or sanctioned technique that includes harming another individual in the process of training them away from bad behavior. That's a high risk of being held accountable for abuse, right? It may be effective in the short term, but in the long term it does nothing. Because the most effective strategy will address it in the now and the future, right? It's a retraining of reflex. It's not a what we call extinction. Extinction is where we want to get rid of a behavior. And that there is a true principle for extinction of certain behaviors in autism, but it's not because we're going to do instantaneous extinction with a slap. We're going to retrain over time, again using positive reinforcement principles. And that's the thing, like, are we trying to instantaneously change a behavior, or do we have the patience, understanding, knowledge, and skill to incrementally make improvements over time for improvement? I would not condone the slapping of a face to get somebody to stop chewing on their shirt. Because what if they use their volition and they say, oh yeah, well, I'm going to chew on it anyway. What are you going to do, slap them harder? And then they keep chewing on it. Then you're going to grab a paddle? Then you're going to grab an implement? Where's the limit to harm? There is no limit in that scenario. And that's where people run the risk of abuse and then culpability in criminal court for damaging another human being. So again, if anyone tells you that slapping someone across the face or shocking them with an electric node or doing adverse things to get them to stop a behavior is the way to go, delete the comment, turn them off, don't listen. Because they clearly don't have an understanding of the proper ways to treat and address these types of things.
What do you think about stimming? Please put in the comments what you really think.
With my experience with my two boys, whenever I see a therapist build a relationship first, like a lot of times they'll do parallel play, they'll copy them, they'll enter their world, they'll show interest in the things that they're interested in, then they're so much more willing, because of that relationship that's built, to do those positive reinforcements, to learn, and because they have that relationship. And of course the social relationship is going to look different with an autistic person, so you might see it differently, but I see that with my kids. And as soon as you lose that trust, as soon as they, and of course they don't do this, but if they were to hit them, if they were to hold their hands down, over. It would be done. That trust would be gone.
Absolutely.
And so the only thing that would happen would just be this resentment build up, and the less they would listen to them, the less they would comply, and it would just be this fight.
There is a certain myth about autism that children who have autism don't have attachments to people or can't form attachments, and that's absolutely false. Kids with autism know who their parents are. They love their parents. Therapists who work with them consistently and in a reinforcing way become that circle of trusted individuals. You can see kids who have autism working with the same therapist who will do really great things with the therapist, and then somebody new comes in and they won't do it for them.
Yeah, they're like, who are you?
Now you mentioned that therapists get there and they create a relationship with Ezra or Simon, right? Mm-hmm. That's great, because what they're doing is they're becoming a reinforcement of themselves. Yeah, right. Creating
intrinsic reinforcement just through the socialization.
Right. It's like when I'm doing the testing on the kids, particularly in the ADOS, I have to spend those first 10 minutes of free play to build that trust, to build that comfort with me in the room. Mm-hmm. And if at the very minimum it's just comfort, they're just used to having me there, that's great, because that's where I can come in and try my activities with them to see if they can respond and whatnot. I had a kid come into my office the other day. I was just trying to finish some paperwork, and this family showed up, and their child has autism, and he wandered in here. And in 2 seconds, we were best friends, because I didn't say, "Get out, this is my room, what are you doing?" Right? I recognized what was going on, and I just went, "Hey, buddy." Yeah. Pulled up my shades and said, "Look out the window." He loved the cars, he's looking. And then when I asked him to come with me, he went with me to go back. And his mom was in here too, but he wouldn't leave when she was saying it. When I took him by the hand and started walking, he's like, "Oh, he showed me something cool. I'm going to go with him this way."
Gotcha.
Right? That's how we might be able to interpret that. Right? But yeah, certainly kids who have autism will do better with people who have patience for their problems, who understand them in a way that can help them feel comfortable. They're going to do way better with that person than the person who's going to come in and try to mandate how they should feel, if they can or cannot feel an emotion, if they want to use punishment strategy. That won't work. It doesn't work.
Here's another good video where we go over some more of this commentator's comments. And our autism playlist is here.